The only religious opinion I feel sure of is this: self-awareness is not just a bunch of amino acids bumping together. Robert Heinlein.
And if you look at 2008 and 2009, the financial crisis, it was really created by what the Fed put into effect after the dot-com bubble burst. So again, it's these policies that the Fed does that's trying to keep everything easy keel and just going steady forward and everything perfect. The problem is no economy is supposed to be like that. You have cycles, right? You have booms and busts and booms and busts. When you don't allow for the busts, what does it do? The balloon fills bigger and bigger and bigger with water until it just bursts. And that's the worry here, is that ultimately that's where we're headed, to some massive crisis where the Fed will be the scapegoat. The politicians will make sure of it, even though arguably they should be partially blamed too, but they'll put it on the Fed. I believe from the dust, you'll have a demand from the public that will say, we need rules in place where the government can't just endlessly run up debt, which, by the way, future generations have to repay. And you just can't have a Federal Reserve that's willing to just inject billions, trillions of dollars into the system. There will be restrictions. And I think that will breed some sort of digitized dollar that has restrictions. I've even dealt with the chance that you might have a mass kind of forgiving of debt around the world, because again, we know that we're not the only country with this issue. So you wonder if you'll just have this mass reset, and then from the depths of that will come this kind of new order when it comes to currencies. And I think crypto is kind of setting the table. I don't think Bitcoin is going to be that currency, but I think there will either be a US currency or it will be a kind of a joint world currency that will come from that, where maybe, the UK and Europe and the US and maybe Japan all join together. I don't know if China will join in there, but I do think that that's probably on the horizon. So yeah, it's such a crazy time. I do worry about my kids and what they're going to have to endure in the future, for sure. And by the way, with climate change too, all these things.
Sure. Yeah, there's
reckless monetary policy is setting up for a paradigm shift. It is full throttle ahead with devastating consequences. The dollar is the world reserve currency. What happens when the Fed loses credibility? Trust needs to be restored on a global level. What better way than to restore trust with a trustless system, with monetary policy baked into the code? A global reset and a new world emerges. From the ashes of the old, a level playing field without reserve currencies.
Jim, is your ICE 9 predictions still in play, or are we past that?
No, it's still in play. And just I'll be really brief. ICE 9 is, I nicked it from Kurt Vonnegut, who used it in his novel Cat's Cradle, which I highly recommend. Hilarious. It's a black comedy in the early 60s, at a time when we were all worried about the world being blown up by nuclear weapons. But the idea was that a physicist invented ICE 9, which is an isotope of water, and it's frozen at what we call room temperature. But if a molecule of ICE 9 comes in contact with a molecule of water, the water turns to ICE 9. So if you poured a vial into a stream, the stream would freeze, the sound would freeze, the ocean would freeze, the world would freeze, and life on Earth would come to an end. So that's what ICE 9 is. But I took that idea and applied it to financial markets and said, you can't shut down one market because, FDR had a bank holiday in 1933, but people don't remember that. He shut every bank in America by executive order. Every bank in America by executive order shut, and didn't say when he was going to reopen them. They were reopened about a week later, but he didn't say that at the time. But the point is, if you freeze money market funds, you say, okay, we've got to run on money market funds. Nobody can redeem money market funds until further notice. And you can do that. Then they're going to go to the banks. They're going to give me my money out of the bank. Well, then they're going to have to freeze withdrawals from deposits. Then they're going to go to stocks and sell stocks because people want the cash. And they're going to have to shut the stock market. So the point is, you can't freeze one section of the markets without freezing all of them, because investors will just pivot from one to the other to the next, the same way the ICE 9 molecule, until you have to shut down everything. And I talked about this in chapter 1 of my book, The Road to Ruin, 2016, how the biggest cog in the wheel, if you will, is BlackRock. And BlackRock's not a bank. And it barely avoided being regulated as a systemically important financial institution coming out of Dodd-Frank. But don't think that the lobbying associated with that wasn't, taken to an unheard of level. Larry Fink gets touted as Secretary of the Treasury, but rest assured that if you get into the kind of scenario we just described, that there'll be a phone call to BlackRock and say, you've got to freeze everybody.
The whole system comes to a stop. It freezes. The crypto in my ledger is money that can be sent to anyone in the world in seconds at a fraction of a penny. The banks will reach a moment where they can't transact, and the technology that they have tried to contain will be the saving grace. It will be a fight or flight moment. Will they save themselves by using crypto?
Thanks. And the last point I make about regulation is, and you alluded to this, David, is regulation can also be used as a barrier to entry by the regulated companies. And every time I see a CEO of a major financial services company denouncing Bitcoin as a fraud, it strikes me that that's just an attempt to keep a regulatory moat kind of around their organization. In the world of moving money around the world, so in the world of trading in stocks, in the last 20 years, the price of trading in stocks has been reduced by 99.5%. It's literally 0.5% of what it was 20 years ago. The world of moving money around the world, credit card payments, remittances, foreign exchange transactions, payday loans, et cetera, has gone up during that same time period. And the companies that are in those segments want desperately to keep those prices high, and they will use regulatory barriers to entry and obfuscation to protect themselves. And we should just be alert to that.
Thank you.
The large banks have a monopoly on moving money. When we hear things like Bitcoin is a fraud or crypto is only used for money laundering, it's to protect the monopoly. Technology is deflationary. The cost of trading stocks is 1/100th of what it used to be. The same can happen for cross-border payments today with technology like XRP. RippleNet is integrated into payment hub after payment hub. Earthport, Finastra, Temenos, TCS Bank, ECS Fin. When the time comes, Ripple is integrated into the foundation of the payment systems. The tech is contained, but when push comes to shove, it's at their fingertips through a Ripple API.
It allows for much more enhanced monitoring and visibility over a financial system. It can bode for a much more efficient economy and marketplace. It creates a much superior payment ecosystem. And I think those are some of the key areas that central banks are really starting to drive home right now. But then more specifically, the understanding that these types of technologies are actually bringing prosperity and economic growth to the citizenry and to the corporations. And while it's a central bank's job to ensure the stability and trust of the dollar and the economy is there, it's part of the mandate as well to ensure economic stimulation occurs. And one of the key things that we're seeing is that central banks are beginning to realize that it's actually in their best interest to begin supporting these types of technologies.
The central banks are printing because they are trying to prevent a recession from occurring. While issuing debt, the financial assets boom in price while the real economy slows. If the financial assets drop, it will have a ripple effect in the real economy. This is a redistribution of wealth. The lower class pays through inflation while the rich, those that hold assets, benefit directly from money printing. Crypto is a way to stimulate the real economy without pumping financial assets. With tokenization, more efficient payment rails, the cost of doing business significantly drops as well as the speed picks up. It also opens new opportunities for new companies that can offer new jobs.
But it's really becoming an increasingly realistic hypothetical. Let's imagine you're an exporter to China. It can be cotton, could be beef, could be anything down from Australia. You've got a great Chinese client who takes, say, 30, 40, 50% of your output, maybe 90 in some industries. And they say to you one day, look, we love your product, it's great, we want to sign a new 10-year agreement with you, so you're guaranteed you can keep selling it to us at a premium price too. We're going to pay you in renminbi, not in US dollars from now on, and it's going to be in digital renminbi, so it won't be coming through your bank. You download this app on your phone, and the currency will just show up on your phone. Now, the problem is that digital renminbi is not going to be exchangeable for Aussie dollars because it's not going to be through the banking system. It's going to be on your phone. It will effectively be the equivalent of a widget or some kind of a cryptocurrency, if you will, but of Chinese origin. And it will be fantastic if you want to buy stuff in China. So you sell to them. You've got these tokens which are effectively only exchangeable in the Chinese shop. and off you can go back to China and order over the internet and get everything sent back to you in Australia. So provided you're prepared to do that, Bob's your uncle. You've got your supply chain sorted out for as far as the eye can see. But the geopolitical ramifications of that are you're moving away from using the US dollar, and more of your earnings are in a currency you can only use with China or with a very small subset of countries. Now, we're not there yet. We are heading closer and closer towards a point where that decision may have to be made. And I'm not even sure if actual individual exporters will be in a position to make it, because it could well be that regulators will turn around and say, we're not going to allow that because we can see where that leads in 5 or 10 years and we don't like it. And were that to happen, then your contract dries up overnight. So hypothetical, but it's not unrealistic.
Imagine a world where every nation has tokenized fiat. Currencies would be competing globally. The governments will intervene to prevent economies from using other nations' currencies. The government of Australia will not allow their citizens to ditch the Aussie dollar to use the digital yuan. This is where a bridge asset comes into play. China sends the digital yuan and it converts into the Aussie dollar. Conversion will be mandatory into this new age.
The entire industrial supply chain that we currently have globally will be rewritten. If everyone's going to shift from dirty production to green production and green electricity, we need a whole new different set of minerals rather than coal and gas and oil. We need lithium. We need, well, if we're going to go nuclear, you need uranium. You need cobalt if you're going to be going that particular route. So where these are located is one issue. The supply chains to get them somewhere else is another issue. And then who controls the supply chains and the global value chain within that new order is what's at stake. Right now, pretty much everything is made in China, some in Japan, some in Europe, not much left in the US. But it's not green. When we shift to green, every country, from America to Europe to the UK to Japan to China, they're all putting their flag in the ground and saying, we are going to be the ones who build the really juicy, expensive, high-end elements of the supply chain. For example, we're going to be building the cars and the car batteries. Fine. But if everyone's going to be doing it, either we de-globalize, which is not something people want to think about, but that's the implication, or we're going to have big winners and losers. So, for example, if America can start making green cars with cobalt, if it can source cobalt and lithium and automate everything and make it in America, who's going to miss out? China. Their economy will be smashed by that. Or if China's going to do it, America can't decouple from China. They can have as much tension as they want, but if they want to meet their green targets, they'll have to buy everything from China. So effectively, what we're already seeing is the beginning of a more 19th century style world where everyone's looking for resources, which they don't have, trying to set up supply chains to make sure they get home, and trying to use protectionism and tariffs and subsidies and build back better to say, yep, all those jobs are going to come home to us. And that involves a government that really understands how to think strategically, think in 3 dimensions, not just say, you don't get rich by trading with yourself, which is absolute nonsense, but every Aussie politician says it over and over again, and actually has a vision for where you go from here in a fast-changing world where there are a lot of sharp elbows. And if you don't have them, you're going to get elbowed.
The petrodollar is a standard where every drop of oil that is pumped out of the ground is priced in dollars. We're entering the 4th industrial revolution where oil and coal is being phased out, therefore less demand for dollars. Let's put this in perspective. The US has a record amount of debt to GDP. We have abused confidence with sanctions and secondary sanctions. At the same time, a shift towards green energy. Nations will update their currency and the petrodollar standard fades away. A new technology emerges, crypto networks, trustless system where nobody has an advantage. Nobody has to trust each other, that stimulate economies. A reset, a new system is coming. Whether that comes orderly or disorderly is unknown, but it's certain that the new system is coming.
I am deeply skeptical about the capacity of government agencies to be innovative. And it took U.S. Central Bank 5 years to adopt, at least 5 years to adopt cloud technologies after industry had broadly adopted them. And the notion that a government agency is going to be on the forefront of innovating in this space strikes me as highly, highly unlikely.
The world is moving forward. Some nations are way ahead of others. When the laggards need to play catch-up, they will hire the private sector to get them up to speed. A desire not to butt into people's business is at least 80% of all human wisdom. Thanks everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. If you're not getting notifications, try unsubscribing and resubscribing. If you want to support this channel, please consider joining my Patreon where I offer early ad-free videos, Discord, weekly chats, and more.